Hello kids, it's time for a kadhai. Are you ready? This is Viji to read out a story for you all children. This week I have yet another popular fairy tale for you all. It is Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The moment I say the title Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, I'm sure a lot of you have associated this with pleasant memories, particularly of childhood days. So do I. That's because most of the schools pick up these kind of popular fairy tales like The Beauty and the Beast, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Cinderella, such kind of stories for children to enact and perform as theatre shows. So did I, and now my child performed recently in a school. So I'm sure a lot of you have done. So that is why this particular fairy tale plays a very special role in most of us, right? So to talk about this story, the original tale was written in the 19th century, was written by the German brothers Grimm, and it was first published in German as Schneewittchen, which is called as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So the story revolves around the beauty of Snow White. Snow White faced envy of her evil stepmother, who always wanted to be the fairest one of all. So let's see how the story goes, children. Join with me in reading this wonderful story. Shall we read the book, children?
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, there lived a princess called Snow White. Her father, the king, was dead. Snow White lived with her wicked stepmother, the queen, in a castle at the edge of a deep green forest. Snow White was very beautiful. Her skin was as white as snow, her hair as black as ebony wood, and her lips were as red as a red rose. The queen was also very beautiful, but terribly vain. She had a magic mirror, and every day she would look into it and say, "Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" The mirror would always reply, "You, O queen, are the fairest of them all." But the queen was still jealous of Snow White's beauty. She made the princess dress in rags and work in the castle as a servant. One day, after the queen had spoken to her magic mirror, the mirror replied, "Famed is thy beauty, majesty, but behold, a lovely maid I see. Alas, she is more fair than thee, lips as red as a rose, hair as black as ebony, skin as white as snow." The queen was furious. "Snow White," she hissed, "it cannot be." Just at that moment, Snow White was cleaning the steps at the castle well. While she worked, she sang of meeting the true love of her dreams. A handsome prince who was passing by stopped at the well to listen. The moment the prince and Snow White met, they fell in love. When the queen saw Snow White and the prince together, she was filled with even more hatred for the princess. She began to think of a plan to get rid of her stepdaughter. The next morning, the queen sent for her huntsman. "Take Snow White out into the forest," she ordered. "I want you to kill her so I never have to see her again." The queen told the huntsman to bring back Snow White's heart in a box to prove that she was dead. The huntsman sadly led the princess into the forest. He knew he could not kill someone who was so kind and innocent. "Run away into the forest and hide," he told Snow White as he knelt beside her. "The queen must think that you are dead. You must never return." Then the huntsman placed an animal's heart in the box the queen had given him. The queen had to believe that Snow White was dead. Horrified, Snow White ran off into the forest. She was terrified by the dark shadows and strange noises. Soon, animals and birds gathered round to comfort Snow White. They led her to a little cottage hidden deep in the forest. Snow White knocked on the door and went inside. She wondered who could live in such a tiny house. Everything was so very small. There were 7 dusty little chairs at the table. In the sink, there were 7 dirty spoons and bowls. And in the bedroom, there were 7 unmade tiny beds. Perhaps children live here, Snow White said. But how untidy everything is. So, with the help of her forest friends, Snow White dusted and cleaned the little cottage. Then she went upstairs to rest and soon fell fast asleep across 3 of the tiny beds. Evening came and the owners of the cottage returned from their day's work. They were 7 dwarfs who worked in diamond mines deep in the heart of a mountain. The dwarfs marched along singing, hey ho, it's home from work we go. Hey ho, it's home from work we go. As soon as they entered the cottage, they knew that something was wrong. It was clean. The floor had been swept and there was a delicious smell coming from a pot on the fire. What's happened? They asked each other in amazement. Maybe it's ghosts, said one of the dwarfs in a trembling voice. Careful men, search every nook and cranny, said another. Their search eventually led them up the stairs into their bedroom. Just then, Snow White stirred and woke up. Why, it's a girl? The dwarfs gasped. Who are you? They asked. My name is Snow White, said the girl. She explained why she was hiding in their cottage. Then she asked the little men, Who are you? I am dark. I am grumpy. I am bashful. I am sleepy. I am sneezy. I am happy. And he is doopy. They all shouted together. I am very pleased to meet you all, said Snow White. If you let me stay here, I promise I'll look after the house for you. I'll wash and sew and cook. The dwarfs quickly agreed. Supper's not quite ready, continued Snow White. You will just have time to wash. I knew there is a catch to it, grumbled Grumpy. Well, I would look to see anybody make me wash. All right, said Dog. And 6 dwarfs tossed Grumpy into the wash tub and scrubbed him clean. Then they all enjoyed a delicious supper. That evening, the little cottage was filled with music and laughter. The dwarfs sang and danced to welcome the princess to their home. Snow White was so happy that she soon forgot all her wicked stepmother. Meanwhile, the wicked stepmother was celebrating Snow White's death. But the next time the queen said the special words to the magic mirror, the mirror replied, Snow White, who dwells with the 7 dwarfs, is as fair as you and as fair again. The queen was enraged. Snow White must still be alive? She screamed, My huntsman has tricked me. She vowed to get rid of Snow White once and for all. So children, this evil wicked stepmother is filled with so much rage that she wants to kill Snow White once for all by herself. The next week we'll see if the wicked stepmother wins or Snow White wins. That is, vanity wins or kindness wins. We'll continue reading Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs the next week, children. Please subscribe my channel to finish the story and also to read plenty of other stories along with me. So meet you all the next week, children. Bye bye.